the viewers that don't know you, Pasha, can you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Pasha Baker. I am 3 generations here in Seminole County and within the city of Sanford. I currently run the Goldsboro Westside Community Historical Association, which encompasses 6 museums, 3 gardens, and Paige Jackson Cemetery. And my background is I was raised here, graduated from Seminole County Public Schools, a proud graduate of Seminole County Public Schools, as well as went on to go to the University of South Florida and to Yale University. From there, I started my career out at JP Morgan Chase. I did the mergers and acquisitions for JP Morgan Chase and Verizon. Some of your big mergers resulted to make JP Morgan Chase today. I'm Heritage JP Morgan. So we took over Chase Bank under Jamie Dimon's leadership when I was there. And so that's what made the bank today, as well as from there, I went on to Verizon and handled the Verizon merger when it was going through the Bell South transition and Heritage Bell South positions as well. So doing that for all across the world, the different fiber optics, I think now in most places, you're now receiving the fiber optic cable. Verizon Fiber is called, in different places. I know I recently got it where I live. Well, that was one of the projects I worked on when I first started, was for the different companies so that their internet and everything, their phone lines would always be stable, no matter if it was a natural disaster or a man-made event, such as what you saw last week in DC. So you have to make sure that all those phone lines and everything stays up as well during those type of communications. So I did that all across the world. From there, I started my own business, worked at Polk State College where you were. I did their entrepreneurship curriculum there and did that across the state. And that led me to here, which is a family-owned business, which is very different than working with families. So, and that is what I do today. So before I came on with Rob, I was given a tour, and we started a clinic down the street in my community. So we're talking about the vaccines, and we actually just got 70,000 vaccines. And so we'll be giving those out to our frontline workers, and they will not be restricted over the age of 65, like traditionally it is from the governor, since it's a public-private partnership. So that's what I'm currently up to. Yeah, since the election. So no rest yet.
Okay. And as we keep going into the interview, again, Pasha Baker here on Fire Breathing Rob, can we talk about, we've heard about this through the 2016 election, and even we hear about this throughout the 2020 election, and you working in that financial field, maybe you can extend on this. And if you can't, we can always cut it out, but maybe you can extend on this. We hear a lot about breaking up the banks, divesting from these big banks.
I actually don't believe in breaking up the big banks.
Okay.
I do believe in the processes that came after and regulations that came after. I think it was.
Are we talking about like Dodd-Frank and stuff like that? Okay.
Yes. The congressman that after the Dodd-Frank Act, Barney Frank and Christopher Dodd. Right. And it was because those regulations were rolled back, but they end up hurting consumers or the citizens and us working people, when those markets took a hit. It was not necessarily that the big banks were so bad. It was that the regulations were not enforced or there to protect the people for being taken advantage of. And so that's where I think those regulations under the Trump administration have been rolled back. And now you see the markets, even though we have a pandemic, even though you have thousands people that have not entered back into the workforce, that are not accounted for in those unemployment numbers. Yeah. And you have a rising cost of unemployment. And then one thing that I never hear mentioned is who's paying for this pandemic? Yeah. These vaccines are free. When you go to the doctor and you run up and you are on a ventilator, that's a $100,000+ bill. That's getting paid for by the government.
Mm-hmm.
But you now see at the markets and Wall Street, where there's a disconnect from Wall Street to Main Street. And the disconnect is now you see Bitcoin hit 30,000. More than any before, more money than ever before. You see the markets hit record numbers during a pandemic. And now you see that disconnect, and that's because those regulations were rolled back. So now you have that gap between the rich got richer and the poor got poorer. And that gap is wide because those regulations were rolled back as well.
So being involved in all this in big businesses, as far as the big banks, and also working in the small business industry, is that what made you want to run for House District 28?
Definitely. It was definitely seeing my neighbors and my family members and everyone around me struggle. It was definitely seeing the small businesses not having the opportunities that they needed to, not having the resources in every community that were needed. And like I said, the rich have gotten richer and the poor have gotten poorer. And then from a state level, that's where a lot of your funding comes from in your counties, in your cities. And I saw our revenues not being properly funneled or channeled back to the people. And that's something that has never been done here in my area. And you see the effects of it over time as well.
What do you feel like is the biggest problem we have in the state of Florida? Is it this big corporate tax giveaway that's given to companies
that's
such as
$500 million
to Disney,
I think that's
Universal?
one of the reasons. Yeah. Did you get $500 million, Rob?
I wish.
Did you get it for Fire Breathing Rob conversations on YouTube?
No, I would like to get a couple $100,000. That would be safe for me.
Yeah, we didn't get $1. We didn't get $1 here at the museums.
I hear you.
We did not get anything. The small businesses across the street, the restaurant I'm getting ready to go to, they did not receive anything as well. No one did. The people that needed most did. However, you know, your big corporations did get those tax cuts. And I think that's where things, you know, it's not running against Republican or Democrat or NPAs or red versus blue.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound right to you?
No.
That doesn't sound right to me. That's why I run. That doesn't sound fair.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, we all know right from wrong and we know what's fair. Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
Where you take my tax dollars and give it to the top 1% of the largest corporations in the state of Florida and I get zero. That doesn't seem right to me. That's why I ran for office.
So let's talk about this now. We go back to your race in 2020. It was about 5,000 and change as far as votes that you lost by. What do you think happened in that race?
Well, we did get the most votes ever, and I think it was a little closer than that, maybe a couple of thousand votes we lost by when we got the final totals. And one of the things that we underestimated is our NPAs. When you hear about Seminole County, and there has been a increase in Seminole County going blue, there has been a large demographic, and it's been such a big change that has brought worldwide and national press to Seminole County to talk about its demographics, because it has always been, as well as with the state of Florida, traditionally very red.
Right.
The county I live in Seminole County, has always been traditionally very red. Where we saw that broken up is in 2016 during Hillary Clinton and during President Trump. The margins weren't as large as we thought they were going to be. She only lost by like 10,000 votes. They expected that to be by 50 or 60,000. In 2018, Andrew Gillum and Bill Nelson both won Seminole County by a few hundred votes. And then in 2020, for the first time since Harry Truman in 1948, since President Harry Truman in 1948, is Seminole County voted for a Democratic president ever. So a long time coming. One thing I would say is that it's going to take more than a few elections for it to reach down the ticket, as well as we do have some voter engagement to do on the Democratic side, where it's not all Democrats come out to vote. Right. Because it has been traditionally red so long, they feel like their vote doesn't matter. or it doesn't reach to the people, or what does their vote mean if it's not going to make a difference? Those type of effects, as well as with their MPAs, we knew that they were blue leaning and Democrat leaning in policies. However, I think everybody underestimated the Republican or red leaning NPAs that would turn out on that day, as well as Trump's force that turned out on election day. I mean, we look at President Biden getting 80+ million votes. You still have 74 million people that still voted for Donald Trump. That's a lot of people. And they voted red down that ticket, and they did not just vote for president. Whereas when you have an election like this, you have some people that only vote for president and that don't take it all the way down ticket as well. So we do see that drop off.
So I've heard from, and I've interviewed quite a few politicians from Florida, Anna Escamani, not too far from you, Jason Pizzo over in South Florida, and a couple other people that were involved in the Florida Democratic Party. My thing is, and you as a person that was a candidate during this time, we saw that the Florida Democratic Party had a lot of issues. Even through 2018, there was tons of issues with a lot of Democrats not winning. And we saw a lot of in 2020 that, they got really close, but they never, sealed the deal. Did you have any issues with the FDP? And if so, what were they? Or what did you see as far as the Florida Democratic Party? Did they do a good job in 2020? What were the issues with this?
So with the Florida Democratic Party, they mainly concentrate on areas that are typically already blue.
Yeah.
So we don't have that same liberty in Seminole County, as well as knowing them up close and personal, such as the people in Orange County or the people in South Florida, which primarily are your blue areas. Remember, we had always been traditionally red, and we're not blue yet. We're still very much purple. And so we don't have that interaction or engagement with the party as they do in the other areas. For my race alone, I can't complain on what the Democratic Party helped me with, as well as what they did for my race. I definitely think they helped and increased turnout and did everything they pretty much could with what they had. I believe there were some missteps on, I think, the PPP loans and all of that kind of stuff, but that really did not affect my race. However, it did affect the race above me in that Senate District 9 race. Yeah. And that I cover half of that district. Yep, you got it. And so we can see the trickle down effects of that type of stuff.
2022, and we have the governor's race, like I said, and the U.S. Senate race against Marco Rubio. Do you see any candidates on the rise that can really get out this vote, maybe rekindle what Andrew Gillum did do when he ran and even win this? Say again?
On the Senate side?
Both sides, governor and Senate, if possible.
Governor and Senate. With statewide recognition, you definitely have to look at our Commissioner Freed. Yeah. That has statewide recognition. That really hasn't had a misstep. We would just like to see more of her and hear more of her publicly and, on the news and stuff like that. That would be my only thing with her. With candidates on the rise, I think Anna, I would also look at Anna's friend, and he was very instrumental in my campaign, a very nice guy.
Carlos?
Yeah, and I believe he is from South Florida.
Maybe. Oh, well, I know he's the Senate district right next door. Maybe he grew up in South Florida. That's right.
He grew up in South Florida. I believe he has very strong ties still down there, where his folks are still from down there, and Hispanic. So we have to definitely look at that demographic. It's a rising demographic here in Seminole County. It's been a rising demographic here in Florida, where you don't look at them as migrant workers anymore. Hispanic, you look at them as definitely professional employees, because how do we know that? Because when they go visit the doctor, they have health insurance. Right. It's how we know.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. I do agree with both of those candidates. Nikki Fried is good. She's a little bit dry for me, but I do I do like Anna because
Tell them how you feel, Rob.
yeah,
Tell them
well,
how you
I
feel.
tell the truth. She's a little too dry for me. Yeah, I think she's a good candidate. She's a little too establishment for me. Like I said, I like Anna. I've interviewed her many times. She says what she means, and she means what she says. And
Definitely.
she's
I think Anna definitely in one of the new congressional seats that are being drawn right now.
yeah,
Remember, we've had an influx of residents that moved into Central Florida,
true.
where that's why redistricting was so important this year, to have those lines drawn fairly, as well as drawn fairly around our congressional seats, because you're going to get another Val Demings and Stephanie Murphy in the area.
Well,
So
Stephanie
definitely.
Murphy and Val Dennings might run for governor. What is your take on that? Because you're in that area right near both of those representatives.
I don't think Stephanie is running for governor.
Okay.
I can tell you that now. But Val Demings would be someone we would definitely support if she did run for governor. We will lock up Seminole County for her right now. If she called right now and said she needed help, if that's what she wanted to do, we would be all in for her. We have already started, and we would start on the ground for her like within the next 5 minutes on that campaign.
Okay. Wow. So we know that's on the rise if that happens.
If she wanted to, yeah. If she, yeah.
So I want to talk.
We got her back on that one.
Sorry to interrupt. Before we get into the last few questions, I do want to talk about where you work with the Goldsboro West Side Community Historical Association. Can you tell viewers that do not know you and also know about this area what it is as far as the business?
All right. So we're going to go here, and you can see the museum and the artwork.
Oh, wow. And is that Trayvon Martin in the picture?
That
That
is. So we have Emmett Till here, and this is our little rocking chair. We have, and that's where children sit at. We have our little free library here, and it's all painted as well. Can you see that?
Yeah.
All right. And then we have the books inside. So after school, children will come here, and adults, and they just grab a book and go. Of course, our artist in residence, and this is Trayvon Martin, and we do have the Trayvon Martin Memorial outside, and I'll take you to it as well. We have our piano that's played on Friday. It's in decoupage, and it's into, I don't know how to play, but
That's okay.
And then we have President Obama, done by one of our artists in residence is here.
Oh, wow. That's really great.
All right. We have some from our gardens. As I told you, we have 3 gardens, and we sell the food to the restaurants downtown. And then the income goes to provide for the museums.
Right. Now, did you develop the museum? It's been in your family for quite a long time then, or you developed it?
Since 2010, yeah. My aunt collected from the museums since 2010. And so now we're outside. I hope I'm not too washed out. And I'll take you right over here to the Trayvon Martin Memorial.
Okay.
And you can see my greens in the back. I'll show you my greens in the back from the garden. All right. So that's the memorial. Can you see his name at top?
I can see the name. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Let me see. All right. And gravestones before him, the people died just like him before him. Here in Sanford. So those what that represents. And then I'll show you some of my greens. I'll show you the bedding garden we put them in first before we move them. And here are some of them here. I'll show you these ones. All right. Sometimes little snakes and stuff move. So hold on.
All right. Well, be careful out there.
So you see my greens?
Okay. Wow.
These look pretty good.
So you take care of this garden yourself then?
No.
I
have a little help.
You're doing a heck of a job. Yeah.
I have a little help. And I'll take you into the other museum. Let me walk across the street.
So can you talk about the mission in general, Pasha? Oh, hold on.
Incorporated city behind Edenville. Edenville was founded a few years before Goldsboro. And I don't have my key,
It's okay.
I locked the museum up.
That's all right.
So Email was founded first by Joseph Clark, his brother, 5 years before his brother 5 years after, William Clark, founded Goldsboro. So we just preserve the history of Goldsboro, but I believe museums should be more than four walls.
Right.
As you saw inside, you saw my my big screen board to show outdoor movies, because I believe museums need to be beyond walls. So that's why we have gardens, and that's why we have all of that stuff, just to make sure that we're more than just history, that we bring it into the present as well.
Well, to get it back into the present, and I appreciate the tour, and I think you're doing a hell of a job there, and it looks really beautiful. Now, how is that working now with the coronavirus? Are you still having kids there with the mask, or is it kind of closed off now? Because obviously with the cases going up so high, we all have to be careful in general.
Yeah, so now, give me a second to put me back on my ring light here.
No worries.
So now we do tours by appointment only.
Yeah.
And then all of our exhibitions. So last year we had about 40 plus events just during Black History Month. From Dr. King's birthday throughout February. We had over 40 plus events. And that reached all of Seminole County. We actually, I believe in bringing the museums to people. So we'll pack it up and we actually take it to the different schools, different Rotary clubs, different organizations, and have it there on site. So people didn't necessarily have to come to me, that we brought the history to them and educated them on the history. So we did that. This year, we still have about 20 plus events throughout the country.
Wow.
We'll do events this year with Chicago. We have events with Orlando Regional History Center from the Coe Massacre and the roles that we played. Different events. We'll do about 20 plus events this year, all virtual. So we'll expand our reach and we'll have them. That's why we have this fancy setup now with the ring light and all of this, is because we'll bring those events over Facebook Live and reach viewers just like you do on YouTube as well.
Well, that's great to hear. And as we end the interview, I think what's important to talk about to end is a lot of these issues that have went on throughout 2020 and also will probably be going on in 2021, because we do have some maniacs that still live in our country. Anyway, so let's kick this around. So we saw in 2020 and the death of Mr. Floyd. With that going on, and this has been going on for so many years. It's been going back since, Emmett Till, but even going back to the 1600s with the slave ships coming here. We don't talk about that enough in history classes, which I think needs to be spoken about more. So with that going on, what do you feel like as far as the Black Lives Matter movement should morph into right now? Because obviously we are not seeing the protests anymore, but this is still going on. We saw during the insurrection of our country in the Capitol that a lot of these people in the military, in the police force, are white supremacists, are racists in general. So this problem is not going to go away. We are going to see more Black men and women. I think we need to express that too. Black women too die, whether it's in a prison, which we saw in Florida and on other states, or even on the street corner. So what do you feel like the movement has to morph into? And do you feel like we need to get more white people involved? Because I think that's huge, because the movement needs more allies to make sure we can stomp out the other white supremacists.
Definitely. The Black Lives Matter movement started here in Sanford after Trayvon Martin. Right. So we do feel that the movement has progressed, and it's progressed nationwide. Remember, during enslavement, a lot of abolitionists were your whites and were the Quakers and the different religious groups that knew that enslavement was wrong. and that did not back behind the principles that it was standing on. So we've always had different groups here in Florida. One of the reasons why you have so many Blacks that were here before, remember, it was before the Spaniards, who were the natives of Florida? Right. The Indians. You know, the Indians were here. And so while looking for the Underground Railroad, you have, of course, they didn't have GPS back then, you know, so they would come here and befriend the Indians. And the Indians would feel actually sympathetic toward the Blacks because of what they went through. So we've always had many allies on the movement. And yes, you were right. There are people that are judges, that are doctors and are lawyers, and that work in law enforcement that we saw that have been discriminatory for many years. Remember, that's why the Ku Klux Klan wore hoods. Yeah. They didn't want you to see their faces, but we knew who they were because they always wore the same shoes. And so we knew that. For that level, there are some things that are going to have to change with only time, meaning that those thoughts and those processes have to die off. There's no change in that person. There's no change in that thought process of their beliefs and their belief system that is right to do those type of things. Some of those things will have to change throughout the generations, and they won't be passed down to the next one. And so that's where our hope comes in. And we have hope that there are so many young people that believe right over wrong and that don't believe in those discriminatory practices. And that's where we see, because you look at all of the people, you saw a lot of people that were 60 plus years old at the Capitol, right? And those are the people, you know, the fellow with Nancy Pelosi's personal belongings and stealing mail, who had his feet on the desk. He was what, 60 plus? Yeah. You saw people that were storming the Capitol that they caught on tape that were physically, they were 56, I believe. One man was 56, the other one was 60 something. But then you have people like the young swimmer. Yeah. And the man with was holding Nancy Pelosi's podium that had, I believe, 4 or 5 kids at home or something, 4 or 5 children at home. You saw those type of people, but you look at the consequences, they're ruined for the rest of their life. The firefighter here in Sanford, right? You know, he just got off of paid leave and now has federal charges. He will never work in that profession again because you cannot have a federal charge.
You spoke about MLK, and we look at when MLK was assassinated, he was pushing for economic rights for everyone, not just Blacks, but for poor whites and everyone else. And then he was assassinated. My thing is, we see the people at the top of the helm, the rich people at the top. They don't want people to know what kind of power they have as far as protesting. They were shivering in their timbers through Black Lives Matter, because when the people come together, Black, white, Latino, Asian, Native American, they got the power to change because they have the numbers. And that's what we need to figure out. We shouldn't be racist against people, whether they're Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, whatever they are. We need to come together as a movement and change the country for the better. And when people figure that out and they know how much power they have if everyone comes together, then we can have a movement and really make change in this country for the better, whether it's healthcare, reparations, a green economy, whatever it may be. We can do that. But until that, and my thing is, and this is what gets me upset with the Democratic Party too, you may disagree with this, you may not, is that we in the Democratic Party, we play a lot of identity politics, and people don't like that game. And we shouldn't have speeches that are just targeted to white people, to Black people, to Hispanic people. We should have broad policies such as Medicare for all, health care for all, because that's going to help white people, Black people, Hispanic people. A green economy. If we have a Green New Deal, it will get rid of the economic racism, which we see in Orlando, which we see in Flint, Michigan. We need to come out and stand for bold policies and get things done and bring people together. And if we don't do that, then people like these people with Trump, they'll believe what Trump says. The Black person is taking your job. The Hispanic person is taking your job. Stand for bold policies to create jobs, to create a green economy, to create Medicare for all, and people will look up to you and vote for you. And that will cut this racism crap in half. Do you disagree with that? Do you agree with that? What do you think?
So I would say people like you give us hope, because wherever you saw in your generations that were above you that may have discriminated against others, that stopped with you.
Yeah.
Where you see people coming together, you haven't seen marches and movements like this, not since Blacks got the right to vote, and during that Voting Rights Act in 1965, where you saw leaders like Dr. King, and that where you pushed and pulled. And that's where politics and people are so important. It's like building a bridge. One side you got to push, the other side you got to pull. See, people like you during your platforms and things like this, and being on those front lines in those marches and putting those movements together, and to keep speaking out. You're what we call an agitator. Dr. King was an agitator. You know, Malcolm X was an agitator. He moved the needle by the words he spoke and by what he did as well within the community. And see, people like me, I'm a puller. See, I want to pull people in from the inside, because it's people like you that got to keep talking, and it's people like me that got to keep writing. And people like Anna and Carlos and Stephanie and Val, they got to keep writing. So they change it from the inside while you're still changing from the outside. And that's how things get done.
Well, the problem in the country is people, I feel like, and this could be seen as white privilege, but people are more worried about, if someone looks like me, I'm going to vote for them. I don't give a crap if someone is white that wins, that someone's Black, Hispanic, Asian. I want somebody that's going to create the policies that I want. Medicare for all, a Green New Deal.
You vote for someone that has the policies and ideas that that you would like to see put forth.
Yeah.
However, we do have to consider that there are still not a lot of roles where people can be seen in them, and we can only be what we see as well. So diversity and representation will always be important, because we have to have a mix that looks like the demographic. I will give you an example. In Seminole County, we are 51+% women. We have more women voters than men. Mm-hmm. And we have no woman that represents us on a leadership level in the state houses right now.
Can you tell people where they can find more about you and also about the museum also before we go?
Of course, we have an exciting Black History Month plan. We just put up our Dr. King post. Of course, that is a day on, not off, where we want you to give back to your communities and have a day of service. And so we just put that up on our social media. And you can also find the museums on our website, Goldsboro Museum, and Goldsboro Museum all over social media, as well as personally, it's going to be just Pasha Baker. I have a pretty unique name, so it's not too many Pashas. So Pasha Baker, you can find me on social media as well as with my own website. And next for me is definitely Seminole Forward, is making sure we keep engaging and keep registering voters. That is, we do it nonstop. We can't wait for a next election, and we just got to keep pushing forward. No one told us it would be easy.
So lastly, as we end, What's the story, Pasha? You going to make a run again? Are you going to run for something else? What's your story?
We will definitely see, but we definitely have to see where the lines are drawn. Yeah. Remember, again, it was a big year for the state of Florida in every state house because it is a redistricting year. So there will be tons of lawsuits flying, I'm sure. So we have to see how the lines are drawn.
Well, I hope you stick to what you're doing because you are kicking ass and we need more women and people in general, men and women like you. Because if we did, we'd probably have a better state of Florida. But anyway, I digress. So as we end, Pasha, thanks so much for your time. I really love this conversation. I hope we do it again down the road.
Come to the museums, Rob, next time.